Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today on the show, we're going to be discussing the question, does the Pittsburgh Steelers have an Aaron Rodgers problem? Is the way that Aaron Rodgers operates this Steelers offense an issue, especially considering that the Steelers might have a decision to make on his future with the team here in 2026? I would say there's at least a possibility that he would want to come back for another season here in Pittsburgh. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the concerns I have with his style of play, how it could be holding the Pittsburgh Steelers back, and then having a little bit of a discussion as to whether or not the Steelers should bring him back in 2026. That is, if he wants to come back. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section to kick off today's show. Is Aaron Rodgers holding the Steelers back on offense? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to give me your take on the Steelers QB1. Now, before we start here, I do want to say that I think Aaron Rodgers has been an upgrade at the quarterback position. I think, in fact, he's been the best starting quarterback here in Pittsburgh since prime Big Ben Roethlisberger. I think you can even make an argument he's been better this year, especially towards the end of the season, than Big Ben was in the later years of his career. He would start seasons pretty well, but then he would lose his arm strength. He would kind of lose juice and stamina at the end of the year, and then by the end of the season, he was not even an average starting quarterback anymore. Rodgers obviously still can throw the ball with incredible velocity and arm talent even late into the season. I mean, as Rodgers likes to put it, he gets stronger as the season goes on, and I think a lot of the film this year has indicated that, and I do think Rodgers has helped in a lot of different areas, including the offensive line. Him getting rid of the football as quickly as he does certainly has helped this offensive line and pass protection units develop into a pretty decent unit at this point in their collective development. And I also think Rodgers' football intellect has, kind of elevated the offense a little bit this year as well. But that doesn't mean Aaron Rodgers, as a 42-year-old quarterback that kind of plays an older school style of offense, we'll talk about that later in the show, comes without his faults. Because you look at the advanced metrics for Rodgers this year, and there's not a whole lot of it here where you're looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, this guy's still a top 10 or above average starting quarterback still in the National Football League. He's still doing a good job limiting turnover-worthy plays. He's top 10 in that regard. But everything else, man, he's not top 20 in adjusted EPA per play. He's not top 30 in success rate. He's not above league average in completion percentage over expected or on target percentage. Efficiency is just 25th in yards per attempt. He doesn't throw the ball down the field at all. He's ranked 41st in average depth of target, and he's third in average time to throw. So he's getting rid of it extremely quickly, not letting things develop necessarily before letting go of the football. So when you look at these numbers, you're looking at a quarterback that is not, a top half of the league starter anymore. And, I think that there's certain things in his game that when you watch the Steelers on film, you can say, the way Rodgers wants to play is kind of holding the Pittsburgh Steelers offense back. And personally, I have 4 concerns with Aaron Rodgers' profile as this team's QB1 that I want to discuss on today's show. Now, before we get into those, let's get into our pinned question here, where you guys can fill in the blank for me here. Aaron Rodgers is a top blank quarterback in the NFL right now. Is he top 20, top 15, top 10? Is he still top 5 in your opinion? Let me know your guys' take down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about a great opportunity to get an awesome piece of Steelers apparel. While I tell you about that opportunity, guys, let me know where Rodgers ranks among NFL quarterbacks today. And if you guys want to get this DK Metcalf Angry Runs t-shirt, you guys can find it on our website right now, chatsports.com/angrydk. Now, I know DK is in a little bit of hot water right now, all right, and I understand that, but this is a really cool t-shirt, man. Of course, he got the Angry Run scepter a couple weeks ago, and along with that scepter, they came out with this design for the t-shirt. So if you guys want the Angry Runs t-shirt for DK Metcalf, I think it's a really cool design. You guys can go chatsports.com/angrydk to pick up this t-shirt and get it into your collection today. After all, DK is here for about the next half decade, so this is probably one you can wear throughout his time here in Pittsburgh. So the first problem that I have with Aaron Rodgers is that he kind of hijacks the play calling here in the Steelers offense, okay? I think if Arthur Smith had it his way, this team would run the football in particular more than they actually do. But Rodgers wants the game and wants the game plan to flow through him as the starting quarterback, as the future Hall of Famer, all that different stuff. And the way that it usually works with the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's exceptions, but usually what they do is that Art gives Rodgers not one, but two different plays in the huddle. All right, usually a pass play and a run play. And then also, not only does Rodgers have those two options from the huddle that Art is putting into his helmet, but he also has a bunch of dead calls where he can just dead the two plays and just call an audible. And usually that's a stick or a dragon or something that's really basic that he can go to at any time if he sees something in the opposing team's coverage. And then as shown in the NFL films against the Detroit Lions, he can just tell Kenny Gainwell, hey, run this route and go line up here. And, he can kind of just manipulate the offense in that way to his liking on every single snap. So in many ways, guys, Aaron Rodgers is just as much the offensive coordinator out there as Arthur Smith is. So if you're gonna be watching a Steelers game and you want to kind of criticize the play calling out there, yes, Arthur Smith is a component of that, but also you have to take into account Aaron Rodgers, because he is responsible for getting this offense in the right play every single snap, okay? So part of the play calling duties do fall on the quarterback in this particular offense. And the reason why the Steelers do this and they give Aaron all that power at the line of scrimmage is because the Steelers, one of the big reasons why you sign a guy like Aaron Rodgers is you want to weaponize his football IQ, all right? Rodgers has pretty much exclusively played in offenses like this throughout his career where he's got full control at the line of scrimmage. He can change plays at a whim if he sees something. He's one of the best pre-snap processors in NFL history, and the Steelers want to weaponize that. And in some games and in some moments, it works out fantastically, like it has for most of the last month, but in other moments, like last week against the Browns, it doesn't work out as well. And this offense is highly dependent on Aaron Rodgers' decision-making at the line of scrimmage. And the downsides to this style of offense that is played by Phillip Rivers and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady back in the day, where the quarterback had all that control at the line of scrimmage. Number one, it means less run plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Rodgers doesn't want to hand the ball off. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to be the reason why the Steelers have success or failure on the offensive side of the ball. And the proof is in the pudding here. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense is currently 10th highest in pass percentage on the season, all right? So it's not like crazy out of balance where they're like top 5 or top 3 and they're never running the football. But, you guys can take a look at the pass and run game efficiency splits here, and it's pretty obvious the Steelers should be running the football more. They're a better rushing offense than they are a passing offense, but they're passing the ball at a top 10 clip right now because Aaron Rodgers is in control of what play they run at the line of scrimmage, and more often than not, he's picking the pass play, all right? And I think that they should be choosing the run play more often because the strength of this offense is Jaylen Warren. It is Kenny Gainwell. It is the offensive line, which is really gelled together this season with a bunch of young players. So I would love to see this team run more run plays and rush the football more. But because Aaron, wants to be the one that's responsible for the offense and wants everything to live and die with him, he's choosing more pass plays, and I think that's hurting the Steelers' offense. Also, limited pre-snap motion. If you're going to be going out in empty formations and Rodgers is going to try and pick apart a defense with his mind, you're not going to have set motion on a lot of those plays unless you have your designed passing play with a motion. If you're going to an audible, you're not motioning before the snap, all right? You're just staying put. And, the best offenses in the NFL today are the ones that utilize motion the most. The Shanahans and the McVays and the Liam Cohens of the world are the people that use motion and weaponize it. The Steelers don't really do that with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and that's been the way that it's been for a long time with Aaron Rodgers' offenses. And then also, when they go to one of those dead call audibles where Rodgers is just killing either of the plays that Art gives him in the headset and then, just calls a stick or a stick dragon or whatever call he wants to go to, those are super basic concepts, right? It's not like he's got audibles to like crazy concepts that, are full field progression reads. No, they're like half field concepts and they're super basic. So when you go to those things, you're a pretty vanilla offense. Then also, especially for a quarterback that's in his first year with a new team, the miscommunication risk is vast. I mean, you got a bunch of players out there that haven't played with each other for years. The best Rodgers offenses and the best Rodgers players that play alongside him are the ones that have played with him for years, that know exactly what he's doing at any given moment. That's why him and Davante Adams had such a special connection, is because they just knew and just spoke each other's language, right? But with new guys that he hasn't played with before, there's a learning curve there, and it usually takes at least a year for an Aaron Rodgers offense to kind of take off and to build that continuity. And the more continuity you have in his offense, the better, because the more that he trusts these guys, the more these guys are going to be on the same page. And unfortunately, we have seen the Steelers offense be not on the same page more than you would have liked heading into the season. And, it really is such a new team. And, these guys are just getting to know each other right now. And it might take, him coming back for another season for this thing to really click and for it to really be a well-oiled machine, especially because Rodgers got here so late, right? With this style of offense, everyone's got to be on the same page. And Rodgers got here, mandatory minicamp. He missed OTAs. And I understand that he had stuff that he had to deal with in his personal life, and that's perfectly fine. But just logistically, when you have an offense like this that is completely based on chemistry and communication and being on the same page, he didn't have those reps in OTAs. And, maybe on the bright side, if he comes back next year, there will be more continuity there. He'll have more chemistry built in with DK Metcalf and some of these other receiving weapons, Pat Freiermuth, for example. But this year, because it's the first year he's working with a lot of these receivers, they just haven't been on the same page as much as you would have liked heading into the year. And obviously with the miscommunication risk, it's tougher on the road. If you're going to be barking out all these audibles and cans and all this different stuff, when you play on the road, it kind of limits what you guys can do, what Rodgers can do from an audible standpoint, from a communication standpoint, because of the crowd noise that's coming in. So I think that's why we've seen this Steelers team be a pretty abysmal, road team this year. They've had some big wins on the road, like against the Ravens and against Detroit and against New England, of course. But for the most part, man, when you have an offense like this, it can be really tough to deal with the crowd noise because of the communication that's needed for this offense to run well. Now, the second problem that I am having with Aaron Rodgers in this offense right now is the lack of matchup and situational awareness from Rodgers himself. Rodgers is so analytical, and he kind of views players as like chess pieces on a board and all these different things. But the modern-day NFL is so much a matchup-based business and so much a matchup-based game where Rodgers will make bad decisions, like objectively bad decisions with the football, because technically speaking, theoretically, the play should work, but the matchup isn't good, or it doesn't meet the situational needs of the situation here, and it doesn't work. Like, for example, 2 plays from this last week's game versus Cleveland. A 4th and 1, all right? 4th and 1, you got Scotty Miller on the outside on a one-on-one situation streaking towards the end zone. You would think if that's DK Metcalf or if that's a good matchup, yeah, absolutely, throw up that one-on-one matchup. But because it's Scotty Miller going up against a good man corner and Tyson Campbell that's way bigger than him, why are we throwing up a jump ball in a situation where we just have to move the chains? We just have to get a new set of downs. All we have to get is a yard, and we can get a first down, and then we can take some shots to the end zone. But no, Rodgers doesn't have the situational awareness or the matchup awareness to kind of turn off that analytical brain of his, and he just throws it up to the one-on-one situation because it's a one-on-one. But that shouldn't be your only reasoning for throwing up a one-on-one. It has to be based on matchups and the player you're throwing to, and especially if Adam Thielen is wide open past the sticks, you got to make sure that you're tailoring your decision-making to the situation and to the players that are on the field, and Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to do that at a super high level this year, and it's bit the Steelers more than once. Then also, there's not a ton of true progressions and pure progressions in the Steelers' passing game. It's a lot of one-read stuff, and if that first read is not there for Aaron Rodgers, where he's getting the team into what he believes is the best play for that particular snap, and if that read is not there, and let's say the defense shifts post snap to something else, and they get shut down, Rodgers he'll get sacked. He will panic in the pocket at times. Now I think his pocket presence and his pocket mobility, have been okay at times this year as well, and he certainly does a good job getting rid of the football on time. But, like, it can get ugly, man, if a defense can rotate and confuse him a little bit. And I think that this is an offense that is very pre-snap oriented from the quarterback's perspective. And that's kind of an old school kind of model. Like, this is what Phillip Rivers did back in the day, and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Tom Brady, where they would have full control of the line of scrimmage. They would see something pre-snap based on the way the defense was aligning, and then the quarterback would get the team into the right play. But the modern day NFL is different. The defense is disguise coverage, and they play a lot of too high safety before the snap. So it's a lot more difficult to decipher what the defense is doing, and therefore it's a lot more based on post-snap processing nowadays on the offensive side of the ball than pre-snap. And, the Steelers are kind of running an archaic system here with Aaron Rodgers because that's all he knows. Like, that's what he grew up playing, so that's what they're playing here in Pittsburgh. But, with the modern day NFL, it's not really the best system to run. I thought Kirk Cousins gave a really good answer on this a couple weeks ago when he was asked about the difference between split field and pure progression offenses. This is what he had to say. He said, I came into the league, even at Michigan State, it was you see coverage and you pick a side and you basically take 5 eligibles down to 2 down to your check down. And so you cut the field in half, and it was, I got single high. I'm going outside the red line to inside to my back, and you're really only thinking about 3 eligibles on that play because the other 2 were meant for split safety, and I got single high. Then sometimes you would alert the other side if you got pressure, so you'd be like, I'm working this route versus split safety or pressure. If I get single high, no pressure, then I work the other side. But what happened was defenses got so good at disguising it that I would be so stressed going into games about the whole game plan built on it, single high or split safety, and I can't see if it's single high or split safety pre-snap. These defenses are just making it muddy until I'm 3 steps into my drop, so coaches started to realize if we ask the quarterback to do that, it's going to be really hard because defenses know that's the game we're playing, and they're not going to let us play it. So then it started to become, let's give you pure progressions, and let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that has its pros and cons as well. I remember Kevin O'Connell was bringing a lot of pure progression reads back with me from LA back to Minnesota, and it was like, whoa, I got to get back to the dagger backside after already exhausting this progression. That's a lot. I'm used to this. I'm used to kind of simplifying it and cutting the field in half, so I kind of had to work through that to where that was more natural, and then there's a lot of positives of it too, where you're not stressing as much during the week about what if I can't see coverage because you say, well, it's okay, I don't have to see coverage. Seeing it can be a benefit, but it's more after the snap where are they going, and I can just kind of progress through. But there's no doubt with the way the pass rush is, if you truly try to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to get sack fumbled a lot, so there's still a lot. So there's still a level of, it's pure progression, but I got to rule him out pretty quickly here so I can get to the backside. So that's obviously a big answer there with a lot of information. But essentially what Kirk is saying there is that the old NFL was go up to the line of scrimmage, see what the defense is in, and then kind of narrow your options down based on the pre-snap coverage and then go through your progression. But the modern day NFL is different. NFL coordinators are setting it up so that quarterbacks don't really have to read a defense pre-snap. You just got your progression. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the ball out to the first open receiver that you see. But that's not what the Steelers run. The Steelers run a pre-snap based offense still with Aaron Rodgers because that's the system Aaron runs. And, it's kind of an older school style of system that maybe the Steelers shouldn't be running because there's not a whole lot of successful offenses in the National Football League that run this style of offense anymore. But another thing here, and this one might be a little bit too harsh on my part, but is Aaron Rodgers a little bit too harsh on his teammates? Like, I was kind of excited about Rodgers coming in and being the guy that's going to hold people accountable. And certainly last year, I got really sick of the over positivity BS that Russ kind of gave us at the end of the season last year, where it's like, oh yeah, we've lost 4 games in a row. We're good. It's like, no, we're not. We need somebody to come in here and say, we got to get our shit fixed. All right. And I thought Rodgers was going to be the guy to do that. And he certainly provided that accountability. And I'm not trying to say he's a bad leader or that guys don't like him or that he's a bad teammate. But when your quarterback's out there and he's very negative and he is almost pouting out there at times, that negative energy can seep into the rest of the team, and that can affect the way that they respond to adversity. So it's kind of been the opposite from Aaron Rodgers, and I would kind of like to have a leader in the locker room here that, yes, hold people accountable, absolutely, but also, hey, let's keep a positive mindset here and let's have a level of belief, and let's not, kind of infect this locker room with a level of negativity when things aren't going our way. So listen, man, I think when things are going right, things are going right, but when things are going wrong here, things are really going wrong. And I think that, Rodgers' prickliness, let's call it, it might be a contributing factor to that as well. But the final word here on Aaron Rodgers here, guys, we've had a little bit of a discussion of some of the concerns I have around Aaron Rodgers today. I absolutely think he's been an upgrade at the quarterback position this year. He's been the best quarterback this team has had in many seasons. And because of that, the Steelers have their best chance, in my opinion, to win a playoff game than they've had in quite some time. But is he the right quarterback that Pittsburgh needs to get to the next level? Is he the type of quarterback that can still win a Super Bowl with the style of offense that he still wants to play? And I think that there's some question marks to that final part of that statement right there, where maybe you have to transition to a quarterback in a system that's more based on pure progressions, like most of the top offenses in the National Football League. And in order to do that, you would have to get a new quarterback in 2026. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Pittsburgh win a playoff game with Aaron Rodgers before he retires? Whether that's this year, whether that's next year, do you think Pittsburgh will win a playoff game with Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback before he retires? Type W if you think they will win a playoff game, or type L if you think they will not win a playoff game during the Aaron Rodgers era. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you guys want more nerdy, in-depth Steelers videos like this one every single day right here on YouTube.